All right. Let's see. Live on Zoom and live on Facebook. Welcome
Ooh.
back to The Change Physician. I am Melissa Cady, the Challenge Doctor, with my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro. And if you're seeing this on the Challenge Doctor Facebook page, we are cross-posting from The Change Physician. You can always go check out our page with all our recent releases, episodes for the Change Physician podcast. If you'd like to become part of the community at thechangephysician.com, whether you're a physician or physician ally, we'd love to have you there. Of course, our Saturday salutations or any of our Facebook Lives, if it ends up on some other day of the week for some reason, because we're two people that, sometimes our schedules don't always line up. That this is all about just sharing what's happened in the podcast and what's coming up and what we're grateful for this past week, or just, I call it gratitude or cool things or whatever we want to talk about. An occasional aside or tangential conversation, of course. We are well known for that. And thank you for joining us, whether this is live or a recording that you hear later. How are you doing, Kevin? Are you caught up on your links?
I'm well.
Good.
How are you doing? I just finished the links and you're making me laugh all this stuff because I'm like, oh, it's just to say hi on a Saturday, right? Salutations, good sir. Salutations, Dr. Katie.
See,
How are you? Top of the
breaking it
morning.
down again to make it simple, and I'm being too wordy. But
wow, you are definitely more complex than me. I'm a simple man.
Are you?
With a simple plan?
What is your plan?
It's so simple that I just can't even tell you what it is.
Oh, it's you're just not going to share it. Okay.
All right. Did you want me to go over what was happening in the last week?
Yeah, we can change the topic. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I don't change away from my simple plan. So I'm going to actually start back a little bit earlier just because it'll make it more consistent with what we're saying about. So what happened last week? And I'm going to go back actually to the week before. We had Dr. Leif Dahleen, who's the physician on fire. And we talked about his journey with kind of blogging and being a leader in that physician fire kind of web space. Fire being financially independent, retire early. He pulled the trigger, I think last year or the year before. I think he's like 43-ish. He was about 38 when he recognized that he was financially independent. So he stumbled actually, and I'm sure there's got to be a website because I'm like stumbling into fire is if someone doesn't have that, they need it, right? So I think that happens. It can happen pretty easily if you're not aware of this stuff. Look at the number and say, oh, wait a second. If I run this by 25 and look at this and the average returns, blah, 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 I'm financially independent. So you can stumble in it. He did. And when he stumbled into it, he started the blog. So it was a good discussion there. Then we took that discussion with him, and this was the one that published on Sunday, where we said the deep dive. And we're doing this with some of our interviews where we're actually talk about them behind their backs, not because we're mean, nasty people, but there's some takeaways. And in recognizing the individual stories, there's things that we can learn individually from them, and our takeaways may be somewhat different than what their takeaways were from what they said. So we talked about, Leif's kind of journey and some of the important considerations that came out of that episode. I feel like I'm returning often because we did some other episodes where I'm returning to this idea of privilege and like being more aware of that. Like I think he was pretty aware of where he came, his background, but being aware that your background, your environment, your parents, your friends, your family, that really influences a lot of these things. It's not a way, it doesn't define who you are, doesn't mean that you can't change. But if you're not aware of that, and particularly if you're coming from a place of privilege, you need to check back and say, wait a second, a lot of people don't have these things when they were starting off that I have. And that could be as simple as a house with two parents that love you. Can be pretty influential. So anyway, we kind of did the deep dive on that. And then the other episodes that are coming out are, actually, I'm sorry, not coming out. I get so confused on these Saturday things, on the dates on these things. But why change is hard. And that was a discussion really between beliefs and behaviors and why we tend to default to a behavior rather than what we say. And if the more you can recognize that you can influence that. So the things that you do will then kind of change your beliefs. And if you want to change, really do the things that you want to do, and then your beliefs will sort of line up after time. It's just doing them repeatedly over and over time. And then that led into another episode where we talked about what is your default behavior? And that's recognizing when you're under stress, you will tend to default to the behavior that you have always done, the things that are easy for you, because those are not a lot of cognitive they're less cognitively draining than trying to think, oh, I need to do all this fancy stuff. So you do what your habit has decided for you, and that comes through practice. So that's where we were. That's where we're going.
Yeah. And do you want to say, because the next one is episode 127 will be Thursday release, before we do our next Saturday salutations or weekend salutations.
I guess I should. Yeah, I get so messed up on the. I don't know why it is so hard for me to figure out like what's producing where. Okay, so yes, and then we have another episode, but it really kind of has to do with identity, but it's framed in what do you expect to be called doctor? So it came out of a discussion. Actually, we were planning. This is what we were originally planning for 126, but as we started episode 126. Which is now 127, we started paying attention to the words that we use. This is, or I am, this is Dr. Cuccaro versus I am Dr. Katie, and the importance of that language. And that led into a whole discussion on expectations and kind of what your identity is around being a physician or not. And this includes any sort of profession, is how closely is that profession part of your core identity versus not, what language that you use, what language, and are you aware of the language use in professional settings, recognizing these sort of ways that we sort of cut authority by reducing expertise through the language use that we do, calling people providers versus their clinical role, et cetera. So we should probably have a name for that type of episode, because it was a total, like, came out of the, I don't know. Anyway, it was a good discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and that releases next Thursday.
Yeah. I think at this point the title is "Do you expect to be called doctor?" But that was out of the gates, random discussion. No, but we enjoyed it, and so those are the episodes from the past to the future, back to the current of time of gratitude for whatever today or this past week. Is there anything that you're grateful for, or have you put that in your head yet, or do I need to go first?
I think you need to go first, because I started when we started doing this broadcast. I had his ideas, and then now my brain's all spinning on the past episodes, and like, oh yeah, that was so cool, and oh yeah, I remember what about that, and and now my brain is fried. So
I'm gonna mention something that arrived this past week that I thought was super cool. We'll see how it goes. But I have a friend who has a peanut allergy. So and there's always a few that come in, into your life that you're like, oh, don't need to be breathing peanut butter breath on them. But I was, I'm tending to my garden, trying to, do my own little landscaping of a few areas, and came across what's called a peanut butter fruit tree. So it has, and there's a whole bunch of videos. In fact, this guy savoring a peanut butter fruit and talking about it's like jiffy in his mouth, but with a little bit of a fruity taste to it, like a PB&J. So anyway, I decided to buy the tree and it arrived this past week, and I'm like, and it's one of those, it's like, it's a grafted one. It's like gonna probably fruit in the next year. And so basically it showed up and it was like a few feet tall versus like a teeny tiny little thing. So I am just kind of excited to see what this peanut butter fruit tree does, and if it really does taste like peanut butter, because I do like peanut butter, and I can share it with my peanut allergy friends.
And what kind of fruit is it look like?
It's like little red fruits. Probably about a centimeter.
Oh, look at that.
You see it?
Yes.
I'd never heard of it.
I hadn't either. And I'm absolutely fascinated now.
I'm glad I can bring this to your life.
Yes.
Kevin. I'm going to call you Kevin now.
You can call me Kevin, because this is all our friends here. This is a non-professional environment. And so that's what we do. But man, yeah, I am super curious. Now my mouth is like watering. Ooh, God, that would be fun. But you made me think about something else that I'm actually grateful for when you were talking about allergies and food allergies. So I have a couple of friends, really, really good friends of mine. One of them, we've been in school. Well, God, when we junior high, I think we started school. And then she ended up marrying one of my fraternity brothers, who's another really good friend. Really, really enjoy them. Don't see them that much because they live far, far away. But their kids have pretty bad peanut allergies. And a couple things that makes you do is first of all, you just never understand the impact of something until you have some more experience with it. And people kind of make fun of food allergies, I think sometimes, or there's some people that have, or maybe, over the last 30 years, have we been more aware of these things. These are huge, big deals.
Yeah.
And through them and kind of their experiences with their kids, it's really made me much more aware of how important food allergies are. Incidentally, my son has a food allergy. It's not nearly as severe as compared to my friends. But again, just being kind of aware of that. But with that, I was having a discussion with my friend a couple months ago now. And so when you have these super, super severe food allergies and you're concerned about literally just the briefest exposure, if you have somebody and their kids are pretty allergic, go their day to day, trying to figure out where you want to go to eat with your family on vacation is a big deal. So they got involved, and I think this is the place, and this is not meant to advertise in any way, shape, or form or anything, but just so people know, but I'm sure it's called the Southern California Food Allergy Institute. And this is basically desensitization. And I know the data, isn't, they don't have tons and tons of publications yet. My understanding is actually they try to do a lot of publishing, and many of the journals wouldn't accept it because what they were doing, they're basically taking people with severe food allergies and doing these little microdoses over time. Now, from an immunological standpoint, it makes absolute perfect sense because we do this through allergy shots. We do this through many different ways. So the science behind it makes a lot of sense. And then there's studies and from the experience, again, anecdote from my friends, is the stuff that's happening with their kids is really remarkable. So I kind of bring this up because the physician behind it, actually, I should reach out and see if I can get him for an interview. He came from a different way of thinking, because traditionally people, it's too risky, we're not going to do it. Or they tried it in a different way, and I think they had some deaths, so nobody wants that. And then it shut everything down. But he kind of challenged that, and he devised these protocols, and now is making a really big difference. And that's the medicine that I really appreciate. And that's the stuff I'm grateful for, or is people who are trying to make a difference for the right reasons, and truly make a really, 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 really big difference. And, I don't know the guy. This is a little, I haven't researched it. This is coming off of our random conversation. So and that's all being caveats. If it ends up that there's some, crazy whatever, and they're all a scam, which I don't believe, but if they are, and it comes back, I recognize that. But I really appreciate when people are really trying hard to make a difference for the right reasons. And then if I know it's not cheap, it shouldn't be cheap because there's a lot of resources involved with this thing. Great. I hope the guy makes $1 billion if he's changing the world and helping kids who've got severe allergies live lives where they're not terrified, and their parents aren't terrified when their kids leave the house of all the potential threats out there. That's super awesome. That is super awesome. So I'm grateful for forward thinkers trying to make a difference.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to send that information my way to share on who's doing that to help. But yeah, that's perfect. Well, anything else you'd like to add on our Saturday salutations?
Only the last little grateful thing is, I think I said last week, is I'm grateful for my friends and family. Spent a wonderful vacation with my family. Always, I just love my family. They are just so awesome. Like, seriously, like, they're the best. And if any of them are watching this right now, yes, I'm talking about you. No, they're a great group. They're just good people. I think sometimes, and I think the importance of our podcast is it kind of keeps us centered. We have good discussions. We're kind of talking a lot about cognitive biases and these perceptual lenses, privilege, and all this stuff. So we're talking about it, being more aware of it, allows us to change. And the more we talk about this stuff, the more I'm just like astounded. We all have struggles and we have all hardships, but it really just the influence that your friends and family have on you. And I've been just incredibly lucky to have my family members who have just so lucky and so blessed. And after a week with them, I'm just reminded of that. So anyway,
Aw.
that's my big thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful to be surrounded by kind people, loving people, and we need to have more kindness in this world. And so I think that's a reminder that, surround yourself by kind family and friends, and it usually bodes well for you as well, since we are influenced by them. So
Yeah, I'm going to add one thing. Surround yourself with kind family and friends who are also kind to others, including people they don't know.
Exactly.
I think in this day and age becomes more and more and more important, is thinking beyond your individual self and your individual family, and recognizing that your actions or actions that you don't take can really, really influence those around you, including the people that you don't know. And I think that's the biggest difference between kindness for me. Is it's super easy to be kind to a friend and family member. It's a lot harder to do things for someone that you don't know, or someone who perhaps you don't particularly like, or perhaps that you're scared of. That's like the true measure of kindness for me, is if you can do that. And yeah, anyway, I'm just going to leave it there, because there's a lot of people I know who, oh, I'm kind and I'm good. And I'm like,
Well,
yeah, sure, you're kind to your friends, you're kind to your family, and then I've seen what you said to other people who you don't know, and it's freaking hateful. So anyway, I'll send it there.
And it can flip too. Sometimes people are kind to the people around them because they're worried about what they think, and then when they're with their family, they are too comfortable and they're not kind. And so I think it goes both ways.
Well, that's not kindness, is it? That's manipulation,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But not everyone thinks, I'm just saying, like, kindness all the way around, not just in one direction. But
all right. Well, I mean, we'll leave it there before we start going off on
another episode
of the Change Physician podcast. So
we'll take us out then.
All right. Well, folks, always a pleasure for Saturday Salutations. Hope your week went well. Hope your upcoming week is going to be fantastic. My week is going to be great, simply because I got to spend some time here with Dr. Amazeballs Katie. That's her real name, by the way. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you can join us on live on Saturdays. If you find this later, you can see the videos live on Facebook and I think YouTube as well. Or you can just join the community at thechangephysician.com. Until next week, stay well.
Bye.